It is quite otherwise, I'm on 162, it is quite otherwise with Neoplatonism, which claimed to present a new interpretation and understanding of Christianity. Especially the way it's developed by Pico and Ficino. And of course he puts Erasmus later in it. I should get you a quote on Erasmus, because he uses Erasmus as well. Yeah, here we are. Pure humanism could turn in a religious direction and towards a religious and theological attitude, and the clearest case of this is Erasmus. Erasmus is completely humanist in his whole outlook. He believes in polite learning, good letters, good Latin, and he believes that the golden age will come when there is an international society of politely learned people, all communicating easily with one another in an international language of good Latin. He's a pious Christian, and he moved with the well-educated people. They use classical learning for its good moral teaching and moral examples. He has absolutely no interest in dialectic, metaphysics, natural philosophy. He scorns them in his great work, The Praise of Folly. Or we can put it this way, now that we developed this, you see, we can say, on the patriarchs and Christians, they have already settled in their soul or their mind the problem of God with faith. Therefore, there's no need to go over here. Therefore, all they need to do is express this. This is the tension in the modern world. This is the tension in the modern world. This is the tension between church and state. In our culture, the church and state have been divided, and I think it's worth considering that they made a deal. And the deal they made is the state doesn't interfere with the church doesn't interfere with the state, until recently. All right? What does that mean? That means, therefore, the social institutions of education funded by the state are interested in developing this kind of an educated man, because it will not generate any criticism or hostility from the religious community. This would. Therefore, the goal of education in our culture is to develop people who are informed. You want to inform them. You want to make sure they become social animals. You want to make sure they can speak properly, they can write letters properly, they can do everything. This is the goal: grammar, rhetoric, and logic. Not move them over here. For this is not to inform, this is to transform. This is a genuine Western development of spirituality. And anyone who moves into this direction and tries to take this as a basis for communicating and building a curriculum around it runs great risks. For the basic reason that part of our culture funds public education, and they don't want to fund public education that goes against their own religion. Therefore, we have a tension and a battle between them. How did we solve it? We'll ignore this. Not only will we ignore it, we will look for all those philosophical systems that, in one way or the other, depreciate this without knowing it, deride it without mastering any part of it, in order to make this the respectable part of education. And so as we finish our education and get dressed up in monk's clothes, in medieval monk costumes, and get our degrees, this is our goal. If, however, you move over here, as one person once said, God better help you. So, excuse my humor, that's my humor. Okay, now look here. Let's see another way that this can express itself. I think this tension between this two shows itself up in a very interesting way. Not necessarily as phenomenology or linguistic philosophy or anything else, Our culture, the people that come into the schools, into the colleges, are all taught one system and only one system alone. Our culture is saturated with one idea. We make sure everybody gets it. It is our local religion, in that sense of a belief, cultivating a belief in order to bring about a worldview from which we can express everything else. It's one subject that everybody who goes through high school and college, say college, if you have 4 years of college, if you have 4 years of high school, if you have 8 years, right, you have 16 years of education, it is likely that you have at least 12 continuous years of studying one subject and one subject alone. Any subject you study, no matter what it is, will always be introduced exactly in the same way, and that is history. That is our study. Our culture roots itself in historicism. What is that curious thing, historicism? Well, I talk to people involved in this. They're some of my colleagues, and they defend it, you see. Now, I often ask them, what if we were to take our people and take that 12 years and put it over here? Why not study classic Greek? Why not share into this study? Why not even take them through a real history to show them the tension between these two instead of a watered-down version which totally ignores these issues and obscures them for very good political reasons? Now, what kind of history is it? Because history is a broad category. I think I have a way in which to represent it from the people who teach it, and I talk to those people who are the subjects of it. Therefore, I've expressed it in a very simple form, and here it is. I hope you can read it. I'll represent it. Each period of history is the result of tradition working itself out in the present. All right, here's the present. There you are. All right, this is a period of history you're in. What's the present? It's the result of tradition working itself out. That's what it represents. And that is nothing other than people in the present interpreting. They are interpreting the past. That's what they're doing. Nothing other than people in the present interpreting the past. And you find yourself in a history which is nothing more than people keeping alive their interpretation of their past. Now, that's very interesting. You find yourself in this history. This is a period of history, right, which we can say 1990s. Right. That's nothing other than people in the present. Right. And they're all taught to do the same thing, to interpret their past. And in that interpretation, you find yourself and you do your understanding. In that act of interpreting, you find yourself and you do your understanding. This is what our people are taught. This is what they're taught, understanding is. Now let's make sure we understand what interpreting is too. Whenever you get involved in any kind of study or discussion, and for whatever reason, you add something to